Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro welcomed Donald Trump's special envoy and proposed a zero agenda with the U.S. government. In the United States on Friday, a small private airplane crashed in northeast Philadelphia. On the fourth day of exchange of detainees between Israel and Hamas takes place, 183 Palestinian prisoners were handed over to Gaza in exchange for 3 Israeli detainees. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, welcomed Donald Trump's special envoy and proposed a zero agenda with the U.S. government. The Venezuelan president received Richard Grenell in response to the request of President Trump, who has proposed seeking a way to resume relations between both nations. President Maduro proposed a zero agenda with the purpose of fine-tuning details and reviewing what has been developed in the last few years regarding bilateral relations. Let us remember that the Venezuelan head of state has emphasized that he is open to dialogue with the United States as long as it is respectful, public, and open, where consensual agreements are reached and no imposition is sought in any way. President Maduro said that the meeting was positive, emphasizing that Venezuela will always practice peace diplomacy.
Today we also received the visit of a special envoy of the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. We have already issued an explanatory communiqué. Ambassador Richard Green came and had a good conversation with the Peace Envoy Coordinator of Venezuela, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, with the Vice President of the Republic, and then, in Office 1 of the Presidential Palace of Miraflores, we had a frank and open direct conversation.
Y luego tuvimos en el despacho 1 del Palacio Presidencial de Miraflores una conversación franca, directa, abierta. Puedo decir que fue positiva.
I can say that it was positive. We practiced the Bolivarian diplomacy of peace. And whoever wants to talk, we will always talk, and whoever knocks on the door, we will always open it.
Siempre hablaremos. Y el que toque la puerta, siempre le abriremos.
And in Venezuela, the Viva Piedad exhibition in honor of the life and work of Colombian Senator Piedad Córdoba concluded in the city of Caracas. During the event, attendees highlighted the legacy of the Colombian human rights activists. The event was headed by the Minister of Women, Johanna Carrillo, and the President of teleSUR, Patricia Villegas, who highlighted Piedad's commitment to Latin American social causes and her eternal bond with Venezuela and the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Hugo Chavez Frias. And preparations are underway in Brazil for the United Nations Climate Change Summit. Our correspondent Ignacio Lemus with the details.
A mission of the United Nations organization visited Belém, the capital of the state of Para, where the UN Climate Change Summit will be held at the end of 2025. The event in the Amazon promises to be not only the first summit in South America, but also the one with the greatest participation of social and indigenous movements.
I am going to start holding meetings with the leaders of the movements to discuss how this format will be, because it will happen. What is the role of the government in this process? What is the role of the social movements in this COP process? How will this happen in the spaces that will be managed by the UN and the federal government? In the spaces of the city where the organized movements will be, how will this take place? How will the process of influencing the accumulation of debate of the social movements to influence the decisions of the heads of state be?
400 leaders of the Landless Movement, the largest social organization in Brazil, began the year in Belém with a national congress to commemorate the 41st anniversary of the movement and to outline the agenda of struggles. For more than 2 weeks, about 300 indigenous people and teachers have been occupying the Education Secretariat of the state of Para against an educational reform promoted by the local government that aims to withdraw education from indigenous villages and other cuts in socio-environmental policies.
No reform in education should be carried out without listening to those who need to be heard. It is not enough to listen to the companies, to the large landowners, to the economic power. It is necessary to listen to those who are affected, to the traditional peoples of the riverbanks, to the landless movement, among others.
En el panorama interno, el gobierno enfrenta proyectos.
On the domestic scene, the government faces anti-environmental projects in Congress. But it is also the territory where ministries such as the environment, indigenous peoples, agrarian reform, and racial equality face extractivist projects in the ministries of mines and energy, agriculture, and transportation. Lula nominated Ambassador Andre Correa do Lego as president of COP30, a relevant figure in international negotiation processes and a favorite among environmentalists. The international panorama changed. After Donald Trump took office, the U.S. left the Paris Agreement.
Consenso internacional para detener el cambio climático.
Obviously, I think that discussing the Paris Agreement, not sending money to the World Health Organization, is a step backwards for human civilization.
For
its part, France has asked the European Union to suspend indefinitely the implementation of environmental and human rights standards, arguing that they generate high costs for companies.
A sociedade civil organizada no G20 social.
The organized civil society at the official G20 proposed to strengthen the Brazilian proposal to have a tariff on the super-rich, and that this be reverted into public policies to combat hunger and finance the fight against climate change. How will this debate be conducted now?
De financiamento de políticas de combate à mudança climática.
The first Amazonian COP will be the territory where social movements will be the voice of developing or underdeveloped countries to demand from the central countries of capitalism measures to confront, adapt to, and mitigate climate change.
Ignacio Lemus y Julia Nassif para teleSUR.
Peruvian President Dina Boluarte reshuffled her cabinet on Friday, swearing in 3 new ministers, including the economy minister for the 3rd time. Jose Salardi, who was Minister of Production in 2020, will now assume economy and finance to replace Jose Arista, strongly criticized for delays with regional budgets. As Minister of Social Development, she appointed Leslie Urteaga, who was Minister of Culture and protagonist of the Machu Picchu privatization scandal. She will replace Julio De Martini, accused of corruption with aid to the poorest children in the country. She also replaced Angela Hernandez, Minister of Women, who normalized the sexual abuse of indigenous children, and has appointed Fanny Montellos to replace her. And a United Nations delegation headed by Undersecretary General Miroslav Janka arrived in Haiti. Prime Minister Alex Didier received the diplomats in Port-au-Prince, where they expressed their agreement on the need to call for elections. After unsuccessfully trying solutions by force with the sending of security elements from several countries, they are analyzing a political solution to a crisis that, according to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner, leaves 13 Haitians dead every day due to violence. The organization also states that the number of internally displaced people has doubled in just 6 months. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the United States, on Friday, a small private airplane crashed in northeast Philadelphia. The small jet carrying 6 people, which did not survive, crashed into a busy suburb of Philadelphia, scattering debris over a wide area and causing extensive damage to homes and vehicles. The plane, which the Federal Aviation Administration said was a Learjet 55 executive aircraft, was bound for Springfield-Branson National Airport in Missouri and had taken off from an airport in northeast Philadelphia. The crash in the U.S. East Coast city comes just 2 days after a passenger jet and a military helicopter collided off Washington's Reagan National Airport. And U.S. President Donald Trump promised to impose tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China on products such as oil, gas, microchips, and steel. He also intends to do the same with the European Union. The Republican had said Friday that Mexico, Canada, and China can do nothing to stop it. Trump has accused the 3 countries of not doing enough to combat fentanyl trafficking, and Canada and Mexico of allowing illegal migration to the United States. However, Trump specified that Canadian oil, which accounts for 60% of U.S. imports in this sector, could be taxed a little less. Several important elements are unknown, such as the scope of the tariffs and the legal tools that Donald Trump will use to justify the decision.
But eventually we're going to put tariffs on chips. We're going to put tariffs on oil and gas. That'll happen fairly soon. I think around the 18th of February. And we're going to put a lot of tariffs on steel. We already have tariffs on steel, and we've saved our steel industry, but that was relatively small compared to what it'll be. But we're going to be putting tariffs on steel and aluminum and ultimately copper. Copper will take a little bit longer, and that'll happen pretty quickly. It'll mean it'll be a great boost for our steel industry. It'll make our steel industry.
And the government of Mexico ratified a will to dialogue with the government of the United States in view of the confirmation of imposing tariffs of 25% on products imported from Mexico City. President Claudia Sheinbaum reported that there is a dialogue table with the U.S. government in which talks are being held on the issue of tariffs and immigration, prioritizing the welfare and human rights of citizens. She also pointed out that she has plans for decisions taken by Washington, emphasizing that she will defend the dignity of the Mexican people and their sovereignty without subordination.
It is very important for the people of Mexico to know that we will always defend the dignity of our people. We will always defend respect for our sovereignty and dialogue as equals, as we have always mentioned, without subordination.
Dmitry Peskov, the Russian presidential spokesman, stated the objective of the BRICS Plus is to create new investment platforms in response to the tariff threats made by Donald Trump. The Kremlin spokesman responded to President Donald Trump's recent statements about imposing tariffs of up to 100% on member nations of the BRICS Plus bloc in the event of creating an alternative currency to the dollar. In his statement, the spokesman said that President Vladimir Putin stated that in the BRICS there has been no discussion of or talk of creating a common currency. He also recommended to the President of the United States that his expert advisors explain the BRICS agenda to him in more details. And the Russian government announced that it will seek alternatives so that the Transnistrian region of Moldova, a border area with Ukraine, can receive gas through alternative routes and thus resolve the current crisis. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova assured that the competent authorities are working to send humanitarian gas supplies. Zakharova also said that she expects a constructive approach from all sides to urgently resolve the crisis with the energy supply of Transnistria. Moldova has found itself in a gas crisis due to Ukraine's ban on transit of Russian gas through its territory and Moldova's refusal to pay debts to Moscow, which are estimated at $709 million. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel, teleSUR English, that you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break? Don't go away. Welcome back. The fourth day of the exchange of detainees between Israel and Hamas takes place. 183 Palestinian prisoners were handed over to Gaza in exchange for 3 Israeli detainees. The Israeli Army and Security Service have confirmed that the 3 Israeli detainees have already left the Gaza Strip and are in good health in the hands of the Israeli authorities and the Israeli people. The exchanges between detainees from both commands are expected to continue in the coming days. And while the detainees exchange process moves forward, preparations begin for medical evacuation through the Rafah crossing. First young patients expected to cross the Rafah border crossing with Egypt to seek specialized medical treatment abroad have begun arriving at a Gaza hospital to prepare for the trip. 50 patients will be evacuated, a positive development even though the World Health Organization says thousands of people urgently need specialized medical care they cannot get in Gaza. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue to lay siege to towns and refugee camps in the West Bank. Palestinian authorities denounced that the Tel Aviv troops broke into several Palestinian residential areas with bulldozers and other machinery in order to destroy homes in Al-Dam and at the eastern entrance to the town. Authorities added that the Israeli occupation razed the streets of the government hospital in Jenin. Health sources announced that more than 19 Palestinians were killed after the incursion into Jenin, while dozens were wounded. And in Syria, an extremist gang reportedly killed at least 10 civilians in northern Hama province. An extremist group stormed the village of Arse and forced citizens out of their homes, then shot them and fled the scene. According to local media, general security forces surrounded the village in search of the hooded gunmen who committed these crimes, and during the operation managed to arrest 3 of them. Human rights organizations said the number of civilians killed by extremist gangs since the beginning of 2025 amounts to more than 100 victims. In other news, Southern African leaders gathered in Harare, Zimbabwe on January 31st for an urgent summit to address the escalating conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, particularly following the capture of Goma by M23 rebel group. The Southern African Development Community pledged unwavering support for the DRC, emphasizing regional cooperation to restore peace and stability. Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa highlighted the collective responsibility of member states to ensure security in the region. The summit also addressed the recent casualties among peacekeeping forces, including 16 soldiers from South Africa and Malawi. Leaders called for renewed dialogue and cooperation among Eastern and Southern African nations to tackle the humanitarian crisis stemming from the conflict.
The summit reaffirmed its solidarity and unwavering commitment to continue supporting the DRC in its pursuit of safeguarding its independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, as well as sustainable peace, security, and development.
It is the individual and collective duty of all member states to do much more towards permanently silencing the guns if we are to succeed in achieving these aspirations.
The World Health Organization announced efforts to support Uganda's health authorities in containing the spread of the so-called Sudan virus in the country. The UN agency announced the allocation of $1 million from its Emergency Contingency Fund to support Uganda's emergency response efforts. The WHO also said it is preparing a shipment of medical supplies to be delivered to the Ugandan government. Following the confirmation of the death of 1 person from the virus, who had been in contact with at least 45 people, an epidemiological fence has been set up in the city of Kampala. In Brazil, in the city of Tiradentes in Minas Gerais, the Media Ninja Collective, an independent media organization founded in Brazil in 2013, held the 8th edition of the Tiradentes Film Festival. A charter for the year 2025 was presented at the event with reflections and cultural proposals for the development of the audiovisual sector in Brazil through the promotion of collaborative, integrated, and systemic action. Among the main proposals are the regulation of video on demand, the extension of the audiovisual law, international policy for the sector, and the expansion of the circuit of movie theaters, public communication network, and public streaming. Brazilian cinema is experiencing a boom period with the awarding of the film I'm Still Here in several international competitions and recently with 3 nominations at the Oscars. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.